This is Rico here with the Boxing Voice with CEO of Matchroom Sport, Mr. Frank Smith. Frank, how are you?
I'm very good, mate. I'm very good. Enjoying the British summer. I don't get much time to do it, so it's nice to be at home for a few days.
Well, this is like my first major in-person interview with a person of your caliber. So you guys can't see it, hopefully. Sweating. I was all in a mess. And luckily, I got some drip.
They'll be happy about that.
They'll be really happy about that. But, well, how have you been, first of all?
Good. Very busy. Lots going on. Lots of shows. We're working on our schedule now. We obviously announced the Belfast show was out there earlier this week, and then working through the schedule till the end of the year. So aiming for a nice busy end to the year, some big fights to be made, and lots of exciting stuff ahead.
Really looking forward to it, actually. I know that online there was, well, there's always people kind of, some people love you, some people hate you. I get that too. Saying about there hasn't been a schedule announced or fights haven't been announced. Actually, at the end of the interview, I'm going to kind of press you on that one there. But for the people that don't know, you've been in the game for a very, very long time, right? You started over there with Matchroom. I'm very aware. I'm a massive fan of yours. Not just because I'm interviewing you, but I know that you have done and made so many fights. Some of everybody's favorite fights that nobody really knows about. But how did you, just kind of quick summary, how did you kind of get into boxing? How did you make your way to being one of the most powerful men in the sport?
I wouldn't say I'm the most powerful man in the sport. I'm one of the few egoless people in the sport. So I try not to push those lines. But I met Eddie when I was 14 years old. I was selling raffle tickets for a charity. Someone had said to me, "Oh, he's the guy with a Bentley outside," and I went, "The tight bastard only gave me 20 quid." So I went back up to him, I asked him for 50 quid. And at that point I just pestered him for a job. It wasn't because I love sport, I got to be honest with you, I've always been honest, and boxing was never my focus. It wasn't, I've got to go and work for Eddie Hearn because he's involved in sport, they're involved in, that was never my interest. It was just meeting successful people, and whether he was a stockbroker, a sports promoter or a car dealer, I would have worked in anything. I just wanted to go make money. And I think we're all impressionable at that age, and for the majority of people, money is a driving force, rightly or wrongly. And I met him and I was like, I'll come and work for you. And then I pestered him for work experience. I did sort of 2 years of work experience in the summer, and then I joined there full time when I was 16. So I've been there 17 years this September. And I've worked my way through the business. I used to go to Leyton Orient, the football club Matchroom owned. I used to go to the darts, the snooker, the pool, everything we do. And I used to just go and get involved in all the events, and slowly over time learn how to work in the business and the industry, and was given a lot of opportunities. You have to be lucky to get those opportunities, but from there you have to you have to put the work in. And that's what I've done for the last 17 years. I've put the effort in everything I've done. I've worked through every strand of our business at every level. And that's where I am now. It's been a good journey. Had some amazing nights. Had some amazing times in the business. Just excited about what's to come. We're lucky to be in a business that you get rewarded every day by seeing the success of things. I get to walk out of venues every weekend and go, wow,
This is really cool.
yeah, this is great. Or I get to walk out and go, not good enough. You can't get complacent. You can't think, you're the best thing out there. Because at the end of the day, there's always people coming for you and come in to take over the sport and come in to take over. So you have to keep moving forward. So for me, that's the driving force. And like I say, I'm lucky to be in a business, because a lot of businesses, you're just a small cog in a big corporate wheel and you don't really see the successes. In this business, you get to see it, and the bad times as well. You have to balance it out, but without bad times, you wouldn't know what good is.
Very well put. I think because Anthony Joshua actually got me into the sport and got me to wanting to interview fighters and get hopefully into kind of a little bit what you and Eddie are doing and everything. But every interview that I always used to hear Eddie say was, when he talk about you, is that you would be you get you to obviously sell the tickets and stuff like that when you were 15. I think you had met Emily Eubank by then, and it's one of those things that if people don't let you through the door, you kick the door down, and that's one thing I really, really admire. Well, let's get to the boxing. So, got to ask you a couple of questions. So, Josh Kelly I spoke to Josh actually, and he had said, wasn't happy with the offer. There's a number that's going around, I think 300K or something like that. One thing that I know personally is that no one really knows any of the numbers unless they see about agreement.
Definitely wasn't that number. Definitely wasn't that number. Look, at the end of the day, it's all subject. Like, if there's an opportunity there, and if the money doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter. You move on to the next thing. That's the business we're in, And ultimately, I like Josh Kelly. I like Adam Booth. I've known them for a long, long time. They've been well paid for fights easier than Jaron Ennis, obviously. But it's the business you're in, and you got to take chances as well. Jaron Ennis is a star who sells 10, 11,000, 12, 13,000 tickets. He sold over the 30,000 tickets in his last 3 fights. Not many people are doing that. Josh Kelly, as much as I like him, he's not that same commercial. He's a great fighter, but Boots is a big A side in the fight. And look, if the offer doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you move on. So it's not. It doesn't have to. No one has to sort of get upset by it. We move on.
What do you say to those people that, because we did obviously have a show on the Boxing Voice, we have a show every single day, that there are these 24-hour tactics that I think Adam Booth had come out and had said that obviously the relationship with him and Eddie isn't as great as it was. After I think Josh had obviously left Matchroom or whatever, but I know that Josh had a massive push by Eddie, obviously up until he had fought Avanasian and went to Wasserman or whatever. But there's this thing in which you'd send somebody an offer, and you'd have 24 hours to they would have 24 hours to either take the money or not. And some people are saying that that these type of negotiations aren't really negotiations. What would you say to them?
It's a fast-paced business, that things move very quickly. There's other people who operate in the business, and you've got half an hour to decide whether you want to fight. And again, it's all choice, isn't it?
Yeah.
For him to go, no thanks, and no problem, no harm done. 24 hours is a long time in the business of boxing. The show is 11 or 12 weeks away. We've got other opportunities. Josh Kelly would have been a great opponent, but there's other people there as well. So it's not like people. Boxing isn't like traditional business.
Yeah.
You have very short time frames. We're working on 12, 14 week time frames before shows of planning. So it's like, here's a fight. Do you want it? No problem. I spoke to another fighter earlier, another manager at 4 o'clock yesterday. Came back to me at 9 a.m. this morning. Can't do it. Sorry. Thank you for the offer. Like that. Easy.
Because obviously it is dependent on. Because I think he had said that for example, it's 9 weeks out for this money, what have you. I do know that fights can be made within an hour, and some fights can be made. It takes months and months.
Yeah, some fights we've been involved in. Look at the first time we made Eubank Ben back in 2022 or whenever it was.
Oh dear.
It took 12 weeks.
Yeah.
But it's a different fight. But we've made fights in 30 minutes. Every fight, every negotiation is different. It's all a negotiation, isn't it? Yeah. If he would have come back within 6 hours and say, I want 5 times the amount of money, you go, okay, no problem, let's leave it. It's all part and parcel. Time frames are there because we have to announce a schedule.
Exactly.
And again, you don't have to say yes. Just say no. Doesn't matter. So like for the public saying, 24 hours is terrible. Just say no. It's an opportunity there. And like I say, I spoke to 2 fighters. I spoke to 2 people yesterday for the same fight as well. And I said, we got this opportunity, need to know quite quickly, are you interested? One came back within 30 minutes, thanks so much, would love to, just don't think I'll do the wait and time. And then another came back this morning, like, that's fine.
Yeah.
No harm. But yeah, people get very upset on the internet.
You have no idea. Oh yeah, I'm getting my fair share of abuse now lately. I think.
Good luck. I mean, it's fine. Just don't listen to it.
Oh,
just laugh at it.
Like if you don't have haters, then you're not really doing anything wrong, right? To be fair, this one is an interesting one because Galal Rodriguez. I don't understand how the WBC, and I actually called out Maurizio. I mean, my voice means nothing, but I actually called out Maurizio and the WBC. I've interviewed him before on what I believe to be one of the strangest decisions ever. Somebody gets popped for peds. I believe Eddie had said on the stomping round with Charlie Parsons that he had failed a drug test previously, so that's 2 no contests in a row. What do you think about that? Because I just think that this whole ped situation is getting out of hand.
Yeah, like I think every fighter, we've been on multiple sides of this, obviously, and I think every fighter deserves their opportunity, as we have seen fighters do, to defend their position, ultimately. And look at various fighters that have come through that process, but that process takes a long time. Look at the likes of what Conor Ben went through. Look at what Dillian White's been through in the past. Canelo, another and they've come through a process and things have been decided. This moved very, very quickly. I've never seen anything quite like it. I don't think anyone has, to make a decision within a 2.5 week or around that sort of 2.5, 3 week process of the result coming out. I've never seen anything like that. And yeah, there was obviously the situation in the fight before as well. Our job is to represent Galal Yafai. I believe Galal Yafai deserves to be mandatory challenger for the World Championship. I believe he should have had that in the first instance anyway. Obviously, Sandoval beat Taraji yesterday in Japan. That's the fight we want to make for Galal Yafai. I think the situation is quite wild, and the way it's been gone about is wild. But again, people will have views on other situations that we've been in. I think there's a process that has to be gone through. And how comes the process in this instance took, less than 20 days, whereas others take months and months and months, if not years?
I need to ask you this, actually. Do you think that because there's this call for 365 drug testing, that all fighters at a high level or what have you should be, that it should be mandatory for everyone, basically, to go through this? However, the expense of such tests is ridiculous. I mean, in terms of maybe a small horse show, I know, shout out to TM14 Promotions, for example, one show budget might be 10K, and actual testing is probably way more than that, especially stringent and Olympic testing. Do you think that boxing will ever be in a position where it is governed and actually funded by an entity in which the funding would be used to go towards testing, so fighters wouldn't have to pay for it? Because I feel like it's you only really get testing at the highest level in main event fights.
Yeah, look, we come under fire a lot. We're one of the only promoters who spend money on testing. Outside of the Ring Magazine Riyadh season shows, we do more testing, than anyone else. And people fail. People fail when you test people more often. So if you're not testing people, you're not going to find out, are you? And so we spend a lot of money on testing, right? And it's the right thing to do. That is the right thing to do. We want to make the sport as safe as possible. I think where the sport is so flawed is an example of that Rodriguez having a no contest in his fight before.
Crazy.
How is the British Boxing Board of Control not informed, or all of the commissions around the world? And that's where the boxing needs some kind of central body to come in and take control of it. The reality is, it's a huge ask. And when you look at every state in America's got a different commission. Then you got the British Boxing Board of Control. Then you go to Italy. Then you go to Spain. And everywhere you go. And the only way we're going to bring it together is one central body. More drug testing, 100% would be great. But we have to look at the feasibility of that as a sport and the financial feasibility. And like I say, when you look at our business, we invest heavily into it. Other promoters, not so much. And I can't, unless you say every promoter has to invest into it, fair. Yeah. But it can't just be weight loaded to one group. And look, we're the biggest promoter, I'd say, in the world. But we still do, in comparison to other promoters, a huge, uplift on testing compared to other promoters out there. I think a lot of the procedural elements of drug testing in the sport is flawed in terms of the length of time it takes, the confidentiality. That's why I honestly think the UCAD process is flawed. You have fighters who fail a UCAD test. It goes on for 2 years in the background. No one hears about it. They continue fighting.
That's crazy.
But that's happened before.
Yeah.
Look at fighters like that it's come out with, years later. I think that process is flawed. But it's how do you change it and make it centrally governed? And until that day, unfortunately, I think it's going to be very difficult to police.
Just moving on from there. Thank you so much for that, Frank. Now, I have a friend in America, and Eddie was there for doing some press. I can't remember when, a couple of weeks ago. And he said to me that Eddie was very, very close and talking to Claressa Shields. And I don't know if you know Papoose, her soon-to-be what have you. He was standing guard, and they, because Eddie and Claressa haven't had the best relationship over the years. Any sort of comment on possibly Claressa going to Matchroom? I know that Jake Paul is obviously catching every single female fighter out there, like Ash catching in Pokemon. Any comment on that one?
No, not really. Look, Claressa's done amazing things for the sport. Obviously, she had a great win last weekend, or the weekend just gone. No comment, to be honest, on it. I don't know what her situation is right now in terms of fights and promotional situation. But yeah, she's done great things. So look, as always with great fighters, if there's opportunities, if fighters are free agents and there's opportunities, then we'll always look at it. But nothing in particular on Claressa Shields, if I'm honest.
And just sticking on the women's division, Frank, what's going on with the women's division at Matchroom?
Look, I think when you look at what Jake Paul's doing, and Nikisha and MVP, it's great. But it shouldn't then take away from the investment that's been made over the last 10 or 15 years.
Because you were spearheading it.
Yeah, I think we did a great job. I think Eddie particularly, did a great job for female boxing and invested very heavily in it when other promoters weren't. But just because someone else comes in who's willing to spend even more money shouldn't then take away from the years of work that have gone in prior to that, And there's always, look, this is a business where a lot of people come in with money and they throw money around and there's huge numbers floating around. And our business is about creating a sustainable long-term business that's going to last for a long time, And we're not going to, we've been in for too long to compete with insane numbers that don't necessarily, great for the fighters, by the way. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not saying, but ultimately we have to run a business like we've done that's successful, because otherwise it's kind of frowned upon in boxing, the fact that promoters need to make money. But you're not doing it, like you invest millions of pounds into fighters. We're not doing it just for a laugh. We're a business at the end of the day. And I think the investment into female boxing by MVP is brilliant, and long may it continue. And I'm sure in time there'll be someone else comes in and spends a load of money. But it shouldn't take away from the years prior to that, is all I'd say. And we still have a stable of women's fighters, and we'll continue to sign women's fighters. Sky Nicholson fights later this month. Shannon Ryan's going to have a fight announced very soon. TMA Hayton, another fighter, a female fighter who we just signed. And we're always looking at new young talent coming through. So they're just three of the fighters that we got now. So it's not like Casey Taylor. We still work with Casey Taylor. What an amazing win she just had. So we still have interest in the business, but if someone else is going to come in and skyrocket the purses, great, and great for the fighters.
Do you think, just obviously speaking in terms of the money aspect going into boxing at the minute, so for example, Turkey Al Sheikh, right? We look back at the Josh Kelly situation. Josh Kelly saying to you, you're offering me less than half of what I got for my highest purse, the highest purse being with my guy Ishmael Davis, big up Ishmael. And, that he was obviously, some would say, overpaid, both of them, for that particular bout, right? Not the best fight or what have you. And now when it comes to other fights and they are basing their last purse on that, what you would call a turkey fight / turkey bag, do you think that sort of muddied the waters a little bit in terms of expectations, reality, and where the boxer is, at that time?
Yeah, I think it's been tremendous for the sport, obviously, and tremendous for boxing. I think, and this is fighters' fault, not Turk. Like, he's done amazing things for boxing.
Yeah.
But I think fighters then sit in this world of, well, this is what this person's getting, or I got this here, and it's like, and then don't have a fight for 12 months. Because it's like, or 14 months, because they're holding out for a fight that doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. There's only a finite number of shows, that for them to box on. So you're offering a fighter an amount of money, they go, it's not enough because this person's getting this over here. And it's like, yeah, but that's that. That's not you. You know, you could have had 4 fights in 12 months while you sat there waiting because you said it wasn't enough money. So I think it's about fighters being sensible and saying, right, I may have made great money there, but now I've got an opportunity to go and do this, you know, and I haven't got any offers elsewhere. But fighters, you know, that sets a value and an expectation, like you say. And if your flavour, like if you're in great fights, you're always going to be back. Yeah. If you're not in fights that entertain, like, no disrespect, I don't think Josh Kelly performed in that Ishmael Davis fight. I don't think anyone was going, whoa. Like, and I love Josh Kelly, so it's not disrespectful. I said the same thing to him. Like, no one's going, whoa, got to get Josh Kelly back out. Do you know what I mean? And that's nothing. The reality is, boxing and high-level sport, not every night is going to be your night. Yeah. Not every night you're going to deliver. Some nights you're going to go out there and not feel yourself, and you're not going to perform like you can. That's the truth. And the unfortunate thing in boxing is you only really get to do it 2 or 3 times a year at that level, maximum. Whereas football, you have a bad game, you go and play again next week or 3 days later, and everyone goes, oh, he's back again, he's great, you know? So boxing, it does make it difficult. But you have to be sensible enough to make decisions, not just based on, oh, I'll wait around for this and I won't fight for 18. And there's been loads of fighters who do that, who don't fight and fight once every 12. And this is pre even the Riyadh season days.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Fighters who would wait around to get, you know, I could make 5 million over 3 fights, or I could make 4 million in one, but it's not for the benefit of my career, you know. And that's the mistake I think that is made often. But it's easy for me to say that. I'm not getting in a ring. But we're talking about the longevity, the building of someone's career. And I think having momentum is key to that, and can build something very long term, you know, and big opportunities for you over a period of time.
Thank you very much, Frank. A couple more for myself. Jack Catterall and my favorite, Rolly Romero. Massive fan of Rolly Romero. Especially what he's done in his last fight. It was just incredible to see, personally. What do you think about that fight? I saw a tweet from Mr. Catterall saying, listen, sign me up for KOs right now. Will you try and pursue that fight, or what's on the horizon for Mr. Catterall?
Yeah, look, he had obviously a terrible cut in that fight, which I think will put him out for quite a while, especially from sparring. You know, that fight was start of July. I doubt he'll be back training until late September, October, like properly training, sparring. I would think, with the way that cut was, you know, he's in a position to get big fights. You know, but again, he has to. The pressure's going to be on him to perform. You know, he came under a lot of fire for that fight against Harlem Eubank, and the pressure's going to be on him to go out there and deliver a performance. But there's big fights to be made for him. You know, in that division, he's obviously moved up to 147 from 140. For that fight, and yeah, we'll see. As soon as he's back and ready, we'll get him back out there.
Speaking of 140, I mean, Adam Azim. I actually grew up in Slough. Shout out Slough boys. Adam is an incredible talent, and it looks to me as if Mr. Shalom is not really in there anymore. Would you, you know, if it were possible, would you entertain trying to get Adam over to Matchroom?
I think any fight, it goes back to the point like you said about Claressa Shields, any fighter that is a free agent and is entertaining and interesting will look to sign. I don't know the situation with Adam Azim. I've heard rumours about him going, you know, to other promoters. You know, look, we've had our back and forth, obviously, with the Dalton Smith situation.
I was just about to say that's perfect there. Him,
yeah.
Dalton.
I think we got the best 140 in Dalton Smith in the UK, but yeah, let's see.
Have we got another one for the 5v5 there, Frank?
Possibly. I think there's going to be a mass exodus of fighters, you know, because at the end of the day, you got to protect yourself, and all these fighters, like Adam Azim, has lost all momentum, if he had any, hasn't fought since February. I saw Caroline Dubois hasn't fought since March. Ben Whittaker, who I believe, like, Ben Whittaker is the most commercially valuable fighter in the UK right now. Whether people like him or not, you know, because people have opinions on him, He's the most commercially valuable fighter out there. What's going on with him? He fought in
I was
April.
going to ask you that, Frank. He very cozy with an Edward Hearn. Very, very cozy. I'm hearing some rumors and stuff.
I like Ben Whittaker. I spent at the Birmingham show. I spent time with him. And have known him for many years. I really like him. I think he's done a tremendous job of entertaining people. He obviously came back with that Liam Cameron win. Was a tremendous win for him. I think he's got every attribute to be the star of British boxing, and I believe he can be a superstar. And I think I personally think he's missed the momentum, and he's been matched terribly throughout his career. Hasn't been matched in a way to help him advance. You got to remember, these fighters were fighting amateurs against the best fighters in the world, right? And then he's come into the pro ranks and hasn't had the investment in the right opponents to step him up, in my opinion. I'm not saying that should be every fight should be a hard fight. It should be learning. You got to use these fights to learn, to put yourself in a position. And he's a tremendous fighter who's only going in against the best opposition, is going to show how good he is. When you speak to people about Ben Whittaker and his talent, spectacular. Yeah. I think his star power, look at what he's done, from a social media perspective. Mm-hmm. But I think he's missed that person shouting out about him, saying this guy is the fucking man. That's the truth. And
you can swear on there, it's okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I reckon we have another one V1 for the 5v5 with Ezra Taylor and Ben Whittaker. Something in my mind is just piecing everything together. Thank you, Frank. AJ Jake Paul. How realistic is this?
I've been saying recently, I've spent so many years in boxing saying, that's a joke, that's never going to happen. And now you just go, anything's possible in boxing. Look, you have to respect what Jake Paul has done, right? Whether you like him or not, you have to respect it. He's great at selling narratives, stories, etc. That's what he does. He's a YouTuber, right? And also, he's put the effort in from a boxing perspective, right? You can't look at him and go, he hasn't done that. He has. But it doesn't mean you can create and put himself on a level that he's just not at, right? Mm-hmm. The reality is, Anthony Joshua will go in there and completely destroy Jake Paul's career within about 30 seconds. But respect for Jake Paul if he fights him, because I wouldn't want to get in the ring with Anthony Joshua. So anything is possible. Let's see. There's conversations ongoing. I know Eddie's been speaking to Nikita about it. I mean, why would you not if you're Anthony Joshua? If someone said to you, you can do your job right and you can get paid an absolute fortune, but it's really easy, you go, okay. We all would. Yeah. In any walk of life, whatever job we're in.
I'm betting my organs on AJ. AJ, if you get that fight, I'm literally you might make me a rich.
If I was allowed to gamble, then I would. But but the mad thing is that fight is probably the biggest fight in boxing, whatever you want to call it, on a global scale.
Keeping it to the heavyweight division, Moses Ituma. I have touted Moses Ituma ever since I met that young man and seen him send a soul to Asgard. I do believe that he is the next Anthony Joshua, 1,000,000% the next heavyweight king. He's facing Dylan White, somebody who's worked with Matchroom for a very long time, and it's given us great fights, to be honest with you. Both Povetkian fights. I mean, I could list them all. But what do you think about that fight? Yeah, I think you're going to be in Riyadh. Hopefully, I will be too. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'll be there. We got Ray Ford fighting Abraham Nova on the card as well. Look, I think it's definitely a step up, obviously, for Moses. I think Moses is a very special fighter, and I think Dillian is not the fighter of old. I think even he, like you saw the Tete fight, he's been around the gap, but he's got a lot of experience. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. But I think Moses is very special, like you say. I agree with that. I think he's got all the attributes to go all the way. But heavyweight boxing is unlike anything else we know, isn't it? Yeah. And when someone who's 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 stone whacks you on the chin, we're all got the chance to be wobbled or go down. That's the reality. Even a heavyweight boxer, and that's why we love heavyweight boxing. And nothing can recreate those moments, can it? And it's a great show. It's going to be a great card as well. So I'm excited for it.
I mean, the Klitschko fight is etched in my brain forever. I mean, Adam Smith and I have become really, really good mates. It's actually really cool, like getting into all of this, and from where I started from like a comment section, and to actually meeting people like you and interviewing people like you and being, friends of Adam and stuff like that. One thing that I will say, anybody watching this interview, is that please follow your dreams, guys. Even though you might, you might have to really, really, really work really, really hard and be broke a long time. Please follow your dreams. Just a couple of questions from the fans, and I just want to say thank you so much again, Frank. We have one from Mr. Ardor. It seems like Ray Ford doesn't get the push that other Matchroom US fighters do. What would you say to that?
I have to disagree. I think we did a great job building him up in the right fights, taking the right tests at the right time. He then, I think it was a purse bid situation with Top Rank for the fight where he won his world title in spectacular fashion in the final round. And then he went on to go on the 5v5. Unfortunately lost there. We got him straight back out on the undercard of Bouts. A great win. Now he's back out against Abraham Nova. Unfortunate and out of our control, obviously, with Kakachi pulling out.
He's not bad, Nova, though, I don't think.
No, it's a good fight. It's a good fight. I personally think we've done a good job with Ray Ford.
Yeah.
I think the reality is when you promote so many fighters, there's always going to be that comparison. But it's characters as well, and it's led by how much is someone willing to do. And that's not me saying Ray isn't willing to do it, but you've got some characters who will literally turn up to the opening of an envelope and do everything you ask of them. And others are a bit more, I'm just focused on my boxing. And there's no problem with that. But that also affects from a commercial viability and the opportunities that present themselves. So, and Ray is a bit more of he's got a personality, but he's a bit more
reserved.
Yeah, reserved and focused on his boxing.
A lot of American fighters are very reserved like that, though.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's different. I think personalities come out of fighters at different stages. Like I always thought, since we've worked with Shakur, I think his personality has come out a lot more. And I'd met him before we promoted him, but even from this side of things, I think you're seeing a lot more of him now.
In a positive
even
light
Terence
as well.
Crawford. Like for years, Terence Crawford, I don't think anyone did a great job of bringing out the character in him. I think Eddie does that with him well. He's done that in the build-up to shows. So I think everyone's different. I think, like I say, it takes time for people to feel more and more comfortable in the position of putting themselves out there.
We have this from George Foster 5900. Oh gosh, where are the Eubank Ben 2 negotiations at right now?
I mean, look, the reality is both fighters signed up for the fight prior to the first fight. It's a 2-fight deal either way. As far as we're concerned, that's done. That's there. There was obviously the September situation which happened, then it came out and said they're not doing the fight, and then it came out and said about November. We're ready and waiting and ready to go. Whether it's September, October, November, December. That was always the intention. It was a 2-fight deal. I believe that fight happens next. I'm obviously not involved with the Eubank team and their conversations with the seller and Riyadh season guys, but yeah, that's still the focus for us is November for that.
I'm going to ask you, right? So, obviously, I don't want you to disclose anything that'll get both of us sued. The rehydration clause. That's obviously been a major issue, obviously, I would imagine it being a major issue in not getting this fight kind of, forward.
I don't believe so. No, but all the terms were agreed before the first fight. And this rhetoric and piece and narrative of look at what Matchroom have made Junior do, it's terrible, trying to make him make weight. Let's go back. He has always been a 160-pound fighter, apart from a few fights he had at 168. When he had the fights at 168, he said, my natural weight is 160, I'm going back there, right? So every fight he's had is there. All of the fights outside of the kind of M fight that they were looking at, forget Canelo for a minute, because that was unrealistic without a big win, we're at 160. Talking about fighting Janibek, Lara, all of these people. to make 160, right? So first and foremost, the narrative that 160, he's a grown man, right, adult, who they said, right, we're going to pay you this amount of money, and these are the terms. You up for it? Yet, no problem. It's not like someone forced out of against their will to do something. You know, no one has to do anything in life for the most part. You know, no one is forced to do anything. We're all out of choice. You do your job for choice. I do my job. I could walk away tomorrow. Not saying it'd be the right decision, but I could. He could go.
Yeah, we need you, Frank.
Yeah, but he could go. This isn't for me. I can't do it anymore. He made that choice, right? Because he's getting paid a lot of money. The rehydration clause. You're talking about Conor Bennett's coming up 2 weight divisions from 147. People say his fights were at 154. He's naturally 147. He's not a big guy. You see him. He's posted on the scales.
I always thought that he could make 140.
Yeah, look, he's 158 on the scales now. Like, you see, he posted something recently. You know, like, he's not a big guy. Mm-hmm. He's making a big step up. Again, he's getting paid very well for it. Part and parcel of it. He accepts doing that because he's getting remunerated well for a big fight, as is Chris. The rehydration piece. I wasn't there when he weighed in the morning. From what I understand, he weighed in with a coat on, one of those dodgy Louis Vuitton jackets he wears.
With the eggs.
Yeah, probably with eggs in the pocket. And he made the weight comfortably. You know, like, so the problem is, one day it's people saying the 160 is a stretch, a weight he's always been at. And again, I agree, he's getting older. So you have to do things in a different manner. The reality is with Chris, I don't think he's ever taken his career professionally seriously to the level of, and that's not me saying he's not an athlete. I don't think, from what I see, and you know, he's not a dedicated 24/7 athlete. He's out playing poker, he's out doing this, which is fine. But you know, you have to, as you get older, you have to put everything in your favour. It's those 1% that count, and that's just my view. So the rehydration clause, I don't believe is an issue. You know, but again, it's people put narratives out there, like, oh, look at what Matchroom have done to Chris Eubank Jr. Whoa. If we weren't involved in his next fight would have been at 160, which everyone was so concerned about making 160. Would that have been our fault as well, if he fought Janibek? You know.
Well, this is one saying that always sticks with me in my head. People don't concentrate on the truth when the lie is far more entertaining, right?
Yeah, true. And it's easy to spread rumours, and it's easy to spread a narrative.
That's what the internet is for.
Yeah.
The internet is...
So, I will always give the real view. I am not sitting here saying it's not easy for him to make, you know, it's easy for him to make 160. No, I'm not. But he's a grown man who's accepted terms because he's getting paid an absolute fortune. And most things in life that make you a load of money aren't easy, whatever you do.
Yeah. Hard to argue with that one too. Final one for me. This is from Z Pacino 92. I'm doing this guy because he always calls into the show and he doesn't slaughter me, so we got to keep it real. Z Pacino, St. Louis. Thank you for your time today, Mr. Frank. Out of all of the former fighters who was signed to Matchroom, who did you enjoy working with the most?
Former fighters. Look, there was a time, obviously, like Tony Bellew, Darren Barker, all of those guys, the early stages of fighters that we worked with, you know, from sort of day one of post-prize fighter being back involved in the sport. Those guys were brilliant, you know, and we still are very close now, you know. I've got to say, like, dealing with Anthony Joshua has been a dream, you know, like Casey Taylor as well. But AJ, I took AJ for his medicals when he turned pro, when we signed him 12 years ago.
Well, just in the car, just like, listening to some hardcore rap.
Yeah, I mean, he was a much better rapper than me. But, like, the journey we've been on, you know, like, and same with Bellew, same with Barker. Like, when you think about the journey, like, those times were so long ago. But when I look at, like, Tony Bellew is a great example. We sold 1,200 tickets for his first fight we did with him against Danny McIntosh at the Echo Arena. And I always say this to people, when people say, who's the stars of tomorrow? And you go, boxing is so hard to say that with, because I would never have said Tony Bellew would have gone on to become a Hollywood actor and his last 4 fights be on pay-per-view. I would have said you were mental, you know. So yeah, those guys.
But I think that's more of a, if I can say, obviously Tony's a great fighter, such a funny guy. Like, I met him in the airport, like, coming back from Ireland. He's hilarious, dude. But I think that's more to the job that you guys, you and Eddie have done. I think it's really underrated in terms of the fact how you guys build fighters, going from just turning pro, and then you'll go through like the levels in terms of English, and then British, and then Commonwealth, and then European. And that's like, I've noticed, and because obviously I've been watching you guys for years and years and years, and I've seen that's how you build your fighters, that's how you get your shows, and the bigger the shows, the bigger the occasion, the bigger the fighter. And then at the end you leave it up to the fighter. So in my opinion, I would say that's down to the job that you guys have done.
Thank you, thank you. No, but look, we're nothing without the talent we represent,
For sure.
obviously. And if the talent you're representing hasn't got the ability both inside and outside the ring, it's very difficult. But I think boxing's a crazy business, and sport is, like, because our job is to build people as big as possible, and sometimes they believe their own hype too much. That's the truth. And the best people I've ever worked with in my life are the people who have always stayed respectful and go, do you know what, and trust and loyalty. Like Anthony Joshua, the loyalty and trust on both sides is, I would do anything for him, he would do anything for us. And that's what you want. Same with Bellew, same with Barker, same with Katie, all these fighters that we represented for so long. I'm sure there's names I'm missing, so I apologise. Tommy Coyle, another great fighter we worked with, Luke Campbell, like all of these people. And it's like that, I would say, is what's missing from boxing. I think a lot of the time fighters chase a quick buck, right? And look, it's a dangerous sport, it's a hard sport, it's a tough sport, and you want to make as much money as possible. But I think you have to be backed by someone who's going to be with you for the long run and build you into what you can be. And if you have belief in yourself and what you can do, then aligning with someone like Anthony Joshua could have made a lot more money at stages of his career, making a decision right early on and gone, I'll get some money here. He believed in himself, and he believed in the journey, and trusted us, and he made a fortune more than he would have made doing those deals then. So I think whoever it is, boxing unfortunately has a thing of, there's so much disloyalty and don't trust people and don't trust promoters. The truth is, if you put your trust in someone, and I'm not just saying us, by the way, but if you say, like, to you, you're going to be my man for my whole career, you would do anything for someone, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of people who want to get involved in boxing and spread gossip, lies, rumours, and spread a narrative that suits them, who don't know what they're talking about. So, that's the one thing that I would say frustrates me.
Like purse numbers.
Yeah, but like, money, right? Money is important.
What up, YouTube family? Don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Help us get to that 1 million subscribers. We're on the road to 1 million. And obviously, we have other great content on our Patreon channel. So since this video is over, head on over to our Patreon and check out all the exclusive content, or right here on our YouTube members.